wanted to create a convention that we felt like was truly built from the ground up to be very inclusive of everyone, like make everyone feel like they really belong in the world of fandom, because they do. Everybody deserves a seat at the table and deserves to feel comfortable and safe attending events, and not to be shut out of like networking opportunities and fun stuff to do. So that was the original impetus, and it's been so much fun that we keep doing it, just because it's the number of awesome people that we've met along the way, and just how much everyone, including us, looks forward to that weekend in October every year. It's not that big a stretch to say that sometimes people do go and then come out a little bit changed on the other side of it, at least in terms of their new friends and their new thoughts on things, and like rejuvenated inspiration.
I think the conversations is what Jesse means. When you come out of it and you've had all of these amazing conversations that you don't necessarily get to have in everyday life, people who are smart and funny and usually quite goofy, and it's becoming a family.
These days, all the information is at our fingertips, even in the multiverse. So as we scroll through to welcome you to the return of the Spotlight, we have expert content creators, YA author Katherine Weibel. We take a trip through the Wild West of fantasy with Falstaff's Unforgiven. And we have fantasy author October Santerelli. Then we go online hoping you're feeling charitable to present this year's giving opportunities. All that and more in the return of the Spotlight on the Multiverse with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Yes, we're back on the Spotlight on the Multiverse. I'm real excited to be back and to count down the days. Now we're just days away from Multiverse Convention, which is awesome, and can't wait to see everybody and have that experience. And we have a first timer joining us. So again, as you all know who watch this show, I love to talk with first timers about this experience. But Katherine, what I always like to do first is allow you to pontificate a little bit more on your bio. So tell everybody a little bit more about yourself and who you are.
Well, I'm Katherine Weibel, and I am a fantasy author of various different series that range from young adult, new adult to adult literature. And because I love fantasy, the themes and the subgenres also vary tremendously, from portal fantasy, adventure and quest space, the fun and light and bright and what they qualify noble, bright and clean fantasy, all the way to the darker side of dark fantasy, dabbling with the grim dark side. And one of the reasons why I absolutely love the fact that I'm coming to Multiverse this year is my YA series is a multiverse-based fantasy.
Oh, nice.
So it just works so well with the theme of one of my book series and the title of this particular convention. But outside of actively writing all my books, and I love to help promote and cross-promote various other authors. I have live streams that I do through the TikTok platform that then again I share on YouTube so that people can meet and be exposed to so many new, especially indie authors out there. And I also do a similar thing with written interviews on various blogs that I have online. But the whole point being is the writing community, the fantasy community, the nerddom communities are so much fun to get into. And I'm just excited to be here at Multiverse this year.
That's awesome. We have Miss A.F. Stewart in the crowd. Hello. Jesse Adams is there, the co-chair of Multiverse. He says hello. And
hello.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the fantasy troping aspect of things, because I was just filling out my Jordan Con application yesterday, and it asks you, one of the questions it asks you is what is your favorite trope to talk about? And I was like, all of them,
Do I have to pick one?
So that's pretty cool that you have a wide range of them with that. We'll get to that in a minute. You mentioned to me why you, and you kind of alluded to it in your intro a little bit about why you joined Multiverse. I mean, obviously the marketing opportunity aside, what was it about Multiverse that caught your eye and said, you know what, I have to go this year?
Well, I will admit this was because it came highly recommended by a number of authors which attended last year. And I've heard repeatedly by different people that you may have been to conventions, but nothing like Multiverse. This is the most charming, the most friendly, the most welcoming one that they know of. And I've heard this again, multiple people. So that's just so exciting. And it's a wonderful thing to hear that people really supportive of this particular convention. And it just got me excited right off the bat.
Yeah. And I contend that this is the perfect year to be a first timer, because for pretty much all of us, it is going to be our first time, because this is a new hotel, a new adventure, a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder, multiverse. So I think it's kind of kismet to work out for this time period to be a part of it. So
that's so exciting. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. I cannot wait.
Do you do a lot of conventions? Is that something you do quite often in the area? I mean, you're local. You're Georgian, or you live in Georgia. So is that something you do quite often? Do you do a lot of conventions?
It's something I'm getting into more and more. For the last 3 years, I have been panelist for numerous panels at the Dragon Con convention in Atlanta. And this year I was first time moderating a panel of my own. It was also the first time I was able to sell some of my books there as well. But that one's just a very different beast. And it's a lot of fun too. And going forward, I'm keeping my ears open on other events. You mentioned Jordan Con a little earlier, and I know I have like that little clock in the back of my head that says tomorrow. That's what I need to be doing, is filling out that application and just to see. But yes, in general, I would love to attend more and more conventions, just depending on travel and finances and everything. But there's such a great way to meet people, to connect, to learn, to simply have fun, and of course, for me as a writer, find other books to read.
So I'm interested in the moderating experience for you, but as far as Multiverse goes, when you got that survey, what caught your eye? What was it that you were like, oh, I really want to be on this panel, or I really want to be a part of this panel?
Oh man, I don't know. You're asking me like to pick one or two of a plethora of stuff, but I felt like the problem was I was trying to sign up for too many things, and I was like, no, I have to back up. And but I'm very comfortable with talking about the writing and craft side. I've done that before, and I know anything people who are just in those kind of fields, I'm always comfortable with. When it comes to fantasy, I base my work off mythology, so anything that deals with like myth and lore and embedding that into the world of fiction is always intriguing. But there was just so many different options to choose from. And again, as I'm fantasy, but it was fun to choose. And I wish it could be a little more specific.
That's all right. No, that's what we love to hear. I mean, that has been pretty much the universal response. I mean, there's just so much and so good stuff. You know, and Multiverse will take care of you. The programming there is top notch, and it'll make sure that you'll have time to do everything else you're doing. Are you selling at Multiverse this year, or are you just?
I will be. So I'm trying to figure out now how much stock to bring, because again, selling at conventions is very, very new to me. As in, Dragon Con was the first time I did that. And again, it's trying to gauge all that kind of stuff behind the scenes. So I'm not lugging around a whole carload of books if I don't need to. I will do it, but a lot of times.
I mean, so yeah, it's. But were you in the America's Mart selling?
I baby steps for myself. I always like to just make sure I can like bite off what I can chew and not anything more. So I was part of what they call the Fantasy Gather. And so it's
I was in the room
4 hours. It was a good little, stepping stone in that, and getting a vibe of what I needed to bring and everything. And I went a little overboard on my decorations for my area, the table, because we share tables, but it was just fun. It was a real neat experience.
I should have walked around a little bit more. At that point I was exhausted, but I was there. I was in that room. It's an awesome experience. I know so many authors in there. It was really cool to see them all have that wonderful moment. But so cool. That's awesome. Fantasy Gather is probably a good barometer of what you'll need at Multiverse. I'd say that is probably if whatever you sold there is probably about the same you'll sell at Multiverse. So yeah, it's not going to be like America's Mart where you need like six boxes of books and stuff like that. So, but you said you moderated for the first time at Dragon Con. What an indoctrination! That's a crazy way to get your moderating career started a little bit. Because what was it in their writing track, or what track was it on?
Interestingly enough, this particular one was in the digital media track because on various social media, as a lot of indie authors have to be in order to market their stuff, and so I was representing the reading and writing with book talk community, and it was a lot of fun because it was I think it was 7 of us, and it was a decent sized panel for the digital media track, but it was neat because we do talk about the writing experience, the reading experience, the way people can interconnect online as well now face to face, and do live streams and develop various reading groups and relationships that cultivate from just a media platform like TikTok. And so the book talk community is pretty cool. I could talk about that one all day. Since I really do.
Yeah, I was at the track. I was there for I don't remember. I was supporting a couple friends of mine at one of the tracks, and that room is pretty big. So did you have and they were streaming live on Twitch? Were you part of that as well?
Yes, they were definitely streaming live on Twitch. One thing I will say, and I recognize this retrospectively, I came in with big sweeping plans, but panels last only an hour. Yeah. And so I had to be really good about deciding curating my questions as I was going, just to make sure I kept it in time and that everybody had a chance to answer various different topics and cover the basics as well. But we did have, actually, this is the 3rd year for me being on that particular panel, and we always get a really good turnout because people are very interested as both the reading side and discovering books and meeting other fellow readers who are passionate about what they love, but also, of course, the writing and the author marketing side.
Jesse says we love good panel mods. We do, yes, absolutely. What drew you to Book Talk? What was it about TikTok that you gravitated toward right away?
My husband forced me.
Good on him.
It's true. It's very true. I was very reluctant, and that's in part because there's only so many hours in a day, and when you're running your own business, because being an independent author, that's what it is. It's a business. You're writing, you're editing, you're multitasking, wearing all these hats. And again, the social media and advertising is a big part of that as well. And so I was super reluctant for a long time to get on that platform, and then very regretful as soon as I did, because I wish I had joined it that much sooner, because it is such a great resource. And in my personal experience of all the platforms, that particular book community is so welcoming and so friendly and willing to tell you, help you out with whatever issue you have. And there's always going to be someone who loves your niche and your genre and your subgenre. And it's just a lot of fun.
Nice. Are you planning on going live while you're at Multiverse?
As in live streaming while I'm there? I could do that. I just walk around and show them. But since this is my first event there, I just have to I just kind of want to feel things out.
Yeah, that's probably a good plan, kind of absorb it and there's always next year, right? So, So, I mean, talking about your work, you mentioned that you cover the gamut of fantasy. You have a YA series, but are you writing? You're also writing for contemporary adult and higher, each category of fantasy. What have you found about fantasy that you love? What is it that you gravitate toward in fantasy?
For me, I think it's just because ever since, as long as I can remember, I love mythology. I love lore. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and it just fascinated me. I don't remember what age it was, but it clicked that all these authors, Tolkien and Rowling and so many others, pull from older lore. And that was just like that light bulb going off in one sense, because I always wanted to find the older, obscure creatures and entities and shine the light on some of them, as well as tell these fantastical stories. So between that and the fact that having just a perpetually creative mind, my sister and I developed our magical multiverse when we were really tiny. We were very young when we started conceiving of this wonderful magical system. And again, ever since I was younger, I just had that, I'm going to be an author. No idea how I was going to do it. No plan, just it's going to happen one day. And that belief just stuck with me. And in a roundabout scenario, I wrote a different series and published a different series first. But now I'm going back and then being able to now share that multiverse filled with all this kind of creatures and entities and situations with people now. It's really fun and just a wonderful experience. But for me, yeah, fantasy came back from the most ancient lore. And that's why some of the books that I write are retellings of various myths and legends.
I love that. Jesse wanted to mention that there is a dedicated space for recording this year called Studio 42, and it's a new thing they're trying. And future guest October Santerelli says the Studio 42 sounds so cool. It is. I got a little sneak preview of it. It looks pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited about being there myself and streaming. But yeah, it's tell us a little bit about the YA series first before I go into my questions about it, because I have a couple questions, but I'd love to hear about your series. Tell everybody a little bit about it.
Well, this one is my most fantastical one, and it is aimed for the younger side of YA. Because of that, it qualifies as a clean fantasy, a family-friendly fantasy. So unlike some other of my works that are on the darker side, because a little more of the grit, and I don't really necessarily consider myself in any way, shape, or form a romance writer, but I do get dark on some of the themes and grit of my other two series. But for the YA one, it's just light and bright and quest-based. It's about a magical multiverse with 12 magical worlds. All of them have multiple dimensions. And the theory is, since the beginning of existence itself, there have been points where existence and the balance that maintains life is threatened. And at those points, a hero, or in this case, a heroine, rises from an obscure world and is there to try to set things right. And the predicted hero, or what they call the Jed, was supposed to be a child of Earth. So my book series for my YA group, my main character awakens on a world not Earth and is thrown into this whole magic system that she was fully unaware of, and has to complete 12 different tasks in order to prove if she or if she's not this next Jed, so this prophesized hero. And that's how that series kickstarts. And of course, if she is proven, the downside means existence is going to be threatened in a major way.
Is she a younger protagonist?
Yes, she starts at 13, and each book will age up about a year up until she's closer to her early 20s. So it does age up. The characters and the themes get darker a little bit as she gets older and matures and goes through the coming of age. But it's just like it's my series that puts the biggest smile on my face, but it is also my passion project. So I will admit that too.
So one of the things I love talking about YA authors about, especially if they're writing in a younger perspective, is what was it like to tap into that energy for you, to be in that mode of being a teenager again and kind of writing from that perspective? Did you find that it was harder to come out of that once you were in it, or were you able to kind of compartmentalize and navigate through that perspective?
Well, I will admit that I had a little cheat for this one, and that's because my main character is based on myself. So she is theoretically, and she always was, my alter ego. And so that is why her name is Katie. I'm Catherine, and we go from there. So it wasn't hard to get my head in that headspace. I just had to go back and try to think of, how did I act when I was this age? And how did I view the world when I was 13 versus 14? And when did things start changing? And when did things get that much more complicated? And then I throw in, of course, the fanciful scenarios and the meetings between different entities and monsters and all the magic systems and stuff like that. So I've got to play around with it, but I really enjoyed it, but it also was essentially going back to how I specifically view the world as a child. Now, if I wrote a different protagonist and had to approach it, it would have to be thought in a slightly different manner, because writers don't want to write necessarily every character based on themselves, because that gets boring for you and the readers. So this one was easier for me because it was supposed to be me. And I found writing other main characters harder because I have to get outside of my headspace so much and approach the world from a very different viewpoint. And that one's a little trickier.
Also tricky to kind of navigate a multiverse in a lot of respects too, because there's different shifts, and I would have to imagine that you have to really be careful about how you go from one world to another in aspects, because they do have to have a slight different nod to them, right? They have to have some kind of change, but they also have to have a hinge that kind of connects the two of them. So talk a little bit about how you navigated going through each multiverse.
Well, for me, I had to create a system of travel that would make sense. And again, even though I consider myself second world based high fantasy, I did fuse some concepts that people are a little more familiar with when it comes to, I guess, sci-fi, in the sense of portals and gateways and wormholes and things like that into the travel. And where it gets complicated is I had to put a distinction of wormhole travel between two physical worlds, and then portal travel between different dimensions on those worlds. So had to come up with that system and try to be as clear as possible. Hopefully it works. Readers so far seem to be okay with it. But when it comes to different worlds themselves, I've worked with various distinguishing situations of maybe the number of moons, has gravity changed? Obviously, the landscape. There is an entire world that is essentially just a giant archipelago, and there's no real continent. And that obviously is going to look easily distinguishably different than one of the other ones, which had a little nod to Tuscany and a more modern take on technology and advancement of magical use. So it's lots of behind the scenes diagrams, and no, I don't know if I could ever figure out how to do a map to represent it. People have asked me, I can't fathom how that would work. When I do figure that out, I will let you know.
Some like a 5D chess or something,
yes,
right? Or it's like
exactly
like origami
digital model that you press and click and take. That would be really neat. I need to find some animators to come up with some
yeah,
that's what I need.
So for you, the world building obviously is going to play essential in this aspect, and you talked about creating the system and everything like that. But for you, does it start and end with character, or do you feel like the world that you have? Because you also said you base a lot of things on mythology, and that you're retelling a lot of those. So is that what you're concentrating on, or is it mostly character driven for you?
That all depends on the series. My YA one, again, it's such a convoluted development because it was developed in part in different layers at different stages of childhood and adolescence and growing up. So it's hard to figure out what came first, the chicken or the egg style, when it came to that series. It just, when I look back on, it's always been there kind of thing. But when it comes to writing some of my newer works, in part, it's a mutual development between character and world, because characters are influenced by the world around them and the world influences the characters. So when I come up with a concept, I guess I could say the character comes first, but really quickly the world around it kind of comes out of that, because it's so integral into deciding how the character views the world, their backstory, what kind of knowledge level they have, and et cetera, so on. So that would say character forward. Now with I guess the only other cadence are any of the books that are retellings that I've worked on and are currently working on, because the storyline's already there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I was already given almost an outline to follow. And the rest is the fun part, to flesh it out and make it this immersive experience for readers to kind of fall into these legends and see this lore in a new light.
What do you think is the key to retelling? Do you feel like there's a balance that has to happen? You know, you don't want to plagiarize, but you also want to keep true to the lore. You want to also pay homage to it. So how do you balance that aspect of it?
I think one benefit, especially with like the most ancient myths, is the fact that the writers at the time were pretty much the stories were orally told for a long time, and then before they were written down. And even when they were written down, the way people told these epic sagas and poems are very different from the way people like to read books today. So it's really easy to expand upon these concepts and really have those chances to make them your own, yet still in a strange way keep true to the lore. I love heavily researching myths. So my novella series based off of Norse mythology, I spent years and years, and I have bookshelves full of history books about people during the era and how they've, their own worldview, the people during the Viking era, as well as, of course, the actual myths themselves. And I have spent probably way too many hours of my life dedicating to try to just keep true as I can to the core values of those myths, yet again, make them tangible and relatable to a modern person, because there are a lot of issues when people are thrown into reading, let's say, the Odyssey. I love the Odyssey, by the way. But there are going to be a lot of people that cringe at that concept because it's just written in a way that's so archaic. And I just want to make it able to be relatable to people again.
There's a lot of history behind it too, which is, I mean, if you go down that rabbit hole, you might never come back.
I don't know if I'm coming back from it. I think I'm always going to share some kind of fun retelling. In the meantime, writing another series that's genuinely my own, because I obviously am an author who just can't write one thing at the same time. I have to take on multiple projects, and it's a nightmare, and it's a fun challenge at the same time.
Toby says relatable should be easy for you. You're so cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious what advice you'd give somebody, because marketing is such an interesting, intricate little balance for authors, especially independent authors. What advice would you give somebody who wants to try TikTok but doesn't know how to start?
Woo, okay. So I have to wrap my head around this one to figure out which is the best way to approach it. But first and foremost, I would say, if you've never been on the platform before, join it. You can be, I hate the term lurker. Some people use that, but you can be someone that just watches, and you go and take your time to start finding the niches you like, see what other people are doing there, see kind of the variety of options you have. Even if you're not ready to necessarily post, you can start engaging on other people's comments and videos, and finding people that you like to follow, finding people who you're comfortable with talking with, and start there. If you are on the platform and have one just purely for social reasons, create a second account, because if you're going in there to specifically, as a writer and author, market, you want to make sure you stay in that stream and not mess up that algorithm by all of a sudden watching a video about dogs and cats, and then all of a sudden you're seeing dogs and cats everywhere, and you've lost your subgenre of whatever top books that you want, or the authors you're trying to follow. And so you have to kind of do it a little strategically, learn from others, feel free to ask questions. Everybody's that I've experienced so far has been so very friendly and willing to share. And whenever you are ready to start posting, just be very smart about, if you're there to market, and make sure you're posting about stuff that applies to what you're trying to get across, which should be books, be it what you like to read, what you're working on, etc.
Nice. What has been the most rewarding aspect for you, other than sales? Let's put that aside, and other than connecting yourself to readers, what has been the most rewarding aspect of taking on TikTok and doing the book talk, being a part of the book talk community?
I think it's the fact that I've been able to make genuine friendships from people that I would never have found otherwise. And now that I've started doing things like conventions, it is so neat to be able to meet people that you've talked with and essentially hung out in a virtual space for months or years, and finally being able to talk to them face to face. I met another fellow author who I'm pretty sure is also going to Multiverse Con, but we found out that we're both in and around the Atlanta area, and then we started hanging out. His wife and my husband and the four of us, we would go out and paint miniatures kind of based off our book characters and stuff like that together. And so you actually develop true friendships, and that's really neat. And October's been popping up, and being able to meet him at a convention and then be able to then again try to reconnect and stay connected on a virtual space with people like him. It's fantastic.
I should have renamed this episode the stylish episode between you and Santerelli, who's coming up. The style between the two of you is just off the charts. I mean, you all just.
Thank you.
So to show everybody, I know you went and grabbed the book cover, so show everybody these lovely books. Don't hide them from everybody. Let's do them, Catherine.
So I have my first books of my various series, and we talked about the YA one a lot. So this is the 12 Tasks, the first book of the Jed Chronicles, which again is my young adult portal fantasy set in a magical multiverse. It is very quest-based. It's full of adventure and twists, and it's just light and bright, again, family-friendly and fun series. So that's the one we talked about most.
I love that, the hardcover.
Oh, yeah. My hardcovers. It was the quickest ones to grab. And then my debut series starts with Asara's Claws. This is called the Incarn Saga, and it's a dark fantasy about shifters in a kingdom on the verge of war. And we delve into a lot of topics that, again, are a little more deeper in the sense of racial divide and religious persecution and some of the heavier topics I threw in this one. But it also was just a fun debut series to get into. I used to study animal behavior and has worked with animals throughout my life. And so being able to create a shifter species where I could pull some of that knowledge in was really neat. And for my adults, I write novellas. So I publish them in omnibuses of sets of 4. And so this is The Guardian Speaker, volumes 1 through 4. And it is my dark retelling on Nordic myth. Again, that is my darkest one. It does get a little grimdark side, but Norse mythology is pretty gritty, and so is that series as well. But that series will be my second complete series by the end of the year when I put out the 16th novella. And it's getting really exciting for readers because I specifically chose to withhold the main iconic characters until the very end. So now my readers are finally meeting the Loki of myth, the Odin of myth, the Freya of myth, and it's fun to see their chatter of, we've waited so long, and now they can finally get it.
Will that be available before Multiverse or probably shortly thereafter, huh?
The final 2 novellas, they will be probably shortly thereafter. I'm releasing one in October, and that is right around that time, but the last one will be in November. And then that series will be complete. But you can start reading now and catch up. So you can.
I was gonna do that for you, but you did it for me. So yeah, I was just about to say it's a perfect time to grab those and catch up and be ready for it after Multiverse. You'll be so excited after reading it. You'll want to go get the novellas that just came out. So
exactly.
I find it. I was just gonna say too. I find it quite ironic that the shiniest book cover was the darkest one.
I know, and that there's a reason for that. I found out printing, and this is interesting. People like when I polled. Now this was a personal poll of my readership, and people wanted everything to be matte, the flat covers. But unfortunately, since my novellas are all this black, anything shows up against them, like a little bit of dust, a little bit of whatever, it's going to show up on it. And I did not like that factor, so I chose them to be shiny to hide.
Love it. That's awesome. Well, it was a real pleasure talking to you and
getting to know
you. And I can't wait to meet you in October. And we might even be on a panel together, which will be exciting. And I look forward to all of that. And tell everybody who's not going to Multiverse, because we do have people who watch this show that aren't actually going to be able to attend this year, where they can find out more about your books and where you're at.
Well, the easiest thing to do would be to find me at my website. And as long as you Google my weird name, you can find it. And that's KatherineWybellBooks.com. Catherine with an AR, which everybody messes up, and Wybell, which is Swedish. So I understand it's going to confuse people. But on there, you'll have all the information of I'm pretty much on most social media. I haven't fully committed to Discord yet, but most social media I'm on that. And have a newsletter, and I'm trying to be as active as possible. And but you can find out all my series, and I have my online shop there. If people want signed copies with all the goodies, you can find that there as well.
Awesome. And go look up Catherine on TikTok. Is it just your name that is your handle?
Yep, Catherine E.Y. Bell.
There you go, everybody. So yeah, if you're on TikTok, then check it out and get a part of that community as well. And thank you, Catherine, so much for joining us. It was a wonderful conversation, and we'll see you in October. And speaking of October, ironically, we're about to bring on Mr. October Santerelli right after this little break from an ad from one of the Multiverse sponsors. So, and then we'll be right back with October Santerelli.
From dark urban fantasy to horror comedy to traditional adventure fantasy to military fantasy. We got stuff all over the gamut.
They were heroes. They were legends. They were retired. Unforgiven is my brand new high fantasy novel. It's kind of like a high fantasy version of The Seven Samurai or Magnificent Seven. So think an awesome Western-inspired adventure fantasy with dwarves and half-orcs and swords and fists and ass-kicking and a dragon and betrayal and found family. And I don't know, man, it's all the cool fantasy stuff you love in a book. And now you can have it. See? Here.
If you like stories about found family and high stakes and shitty friends and bickering siblings who shoot one another, if you think we're moderately amusing, well, this is kind of like us. These people can actually kick ass. They don't just look like they can beat people up.
The Seven, Unforgiven, a fantasy novel by John G. Harkness. Chapter 1. Not much of a town, the young man thought as he climbed down off his horse and stretched his back. Certainly not the kind of place I'd expect to find him. But maybe that's the point. He took in the meager buildings as he walked down what passed for a main thoroughfare. To his right was a smithy with a huge green-skinned half-orc beating a horseshoe into shape. The peals of his hammer rang out in a rhythm that the man found himself unconsciously matching with his steps. He gave a wry half-smile and slowed his pace, not in a hurry. Next to the smithy was a general store with a wide porch. Two old men sat across a weathered oaken barrel from each other, not nearly as intent on the game of kings and pawns as they might want it to seem. The younger of the two, a whippersnapper of barely 70 years, cut a wrinkled eye at the man as he passed. He gave it no serious mind. People liked to stare at anything different, and this did not seem like a town where men often wore steel in the street. A pair of women leaned out the windows of the boarding house across from the store. One, a red-headed human with freckles scattered across her impressive bosom. The other, a lissom, elvish woman carrying the air of ennui and sadness that always enveloped the Fae folk when they were away from their trees, either by their own doing or by circumstances beyond their control. The elf caught his eye, her hand straying down to her thigh as she sat perched on the windowsill, a dress of gossamer green silk flowing in the slight breeze. The man noted the slight bulge of a blade strapped to her thigh. The willowy forest dweller was not without her defenses, it seemed. He allowed himself another slight smile as he focused his attention on his destination. The town's only inn and tavern sat at one end of the street.
My books. I love them.
All right. Speaking of Falstaff authors,
I'm
former.
actually not anymore.
Yeah, former. I was just gonna say
Yeah.
former. October K Santerelli's here. Toby, for those of you who are so privileged to know him, because it is quite that. It is an extinguishing honor for myself to know him, for sure. So tell, how I always like to start this conversation, Toby, is to tell everybody a little bit about yourself. So please give us a little bit of Toby.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm October K Santerelli, and I primarily write fantasy, and I primarily write dark fantasy, which is ironic. But I've got several books out at the moment, and I have a new one dropping this Halloween, City of Day, that one. The second book in the series comes out this Halloween, City of Night. I just dropped the Book of the Witch's Son this April, and Storm's Eye with David Brin in the Out of Time series is coming back in a reprint with a brand new cover in the next couple months.
Awesome. That's awesome. So you've been to several multiverses.
Yes.
What is it about multiverse that keeps you coming back? What do you love about it?
Okay, it's this miasma that encases the place. It's this like rainbows and puppies. Like you just feel really at home there. You feel really comfortable there. It's one of the first shows that I ever went to where I wasn't the only visually queer person, like openly out and advertising it queer person, and it was fantastic. Like I struggled to find other people like me in the industry, and I didn't dare. We had a whole panel together, and we're all friends now. So yeah, it's the inclusivity. It's the fact that you can pop into any one of the meets and you'll be welcomed. You can walk down the hall and make friends with a dozen people before you get to the bathroom. Like it's it's fantastic.
We talked last year on this very show about how not only inclusivity was a big factor for you, but the opportunity to represent yourself as an author and not just another queer author, and be on all the neurodivergent panels. You were on fantasy panels and really generic fantasy talks that incorporated the things you love about the genre you write in, and so I think that has followed suit for you throughout the rest of these conventions as well. It's starting to trickle out and have an effect for you, and I know you'll probably credit Multiverse for that. But has that been the case? Are you finding that people are more accepting,
more willing to let me branch out?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, just so having the opportunity to be a fantasy author and just be in a space with other authors, right?
Yeah, I actually
not be judged for who you are.
I just came back from Dragon Con, where I was in an authors collective booth called Side Street Book Market. I always forget the book part. I'm just like, Side Street Market. No, there's books there. And we were all just authors, and it was fantastic. And I feel really warm and fuzzy still about holding my own with all of these authors who were just authors. And, that made me realize that in that space, I was just an author. And that was nice.
Are you selling this year? Because I remember, I think last year you took a year off, right? From selling?
From selling at Multiverse?
Yeah.
No, I sold at Multiverse last year, but I was doing pre-orders for the new cover.
Okay.
And then this year, I have the Book of the Witch's Son coming with me. And that one is, like I said, brand new. That's the one that I couldn't keep on the shelves at Dragon Con.
Yeah.
I brought 50 copies of that book, and I walked away with 4. So yeah, that one's my newest one, and I'm excited to bring that one. I will also have pre-orders open for City of Night, so that people can pick up City of Day, City of Night, all of that, and get their signed copies mailed to them when it drops on Halloween, because ghost stories should always drop on Halloween.
I'm looking forward to reading that one because I love City of Day so much. I just, it's such a great book.
Secret. I like book 2 better.
Oh, nice. I like that secret. That's a good
I mean, I
secret.
still really like book 1, but I love book 2. So I'm so excited to share it with everybody.
Yeah, for people who don't know, City of Day was my cover of the year last year as well. It's there you go. I mean, Toby has an incredible artist, and have you unveiled City of Night to everybody? Because I've seen it, but
I have. I sent it in my newsletter. My newsletter gets everything first, and then a week later I posted it on social media. So, hint, everybody, sign up for my newsletter. But here is the cover for City of Night.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. That's just unbelievable.
And Joe's is my artist, Joe's Grossel, and he lives in the UK. He is fantastic at what he does. And like the full cover, the background of the first book, very, very hard to see, but is a door with a ghost hand stretching out. This one is a cave, and he managed to get like water ripples on the walls. I don't know how he does it. He's a genius, and I love him.
Was there in looking at the survey this year, was there something that stuck out in your mind that you wanted to do that you maybe haven't done before in terms of panels and stuff like that?
Oh my gosh, I filled that out literally the moment it hit my inbox and haven't seen it since. So I was excited about a lot of things. I know that. I checked a lot of boxes, and then Vanessa told me that I won't be on everything. And I was like, that's sad. Because I'm a tiny panel addict. Like, I want to be on all the panels.
Yeah.
And like last year, I really enjoyed the fairy tale panel I was on.
Yeah.
And I would love to do more mythology and fairy tale panels and stuff like that, because that is my secret hidden niche. Like, I don't rewrite fairy tales. I mean, I'm working on it, but I don't rewrite fairy tales. But I know so many of them, and I held my own against a professor, and I was like, yeah, I'm smart.
You're another profound TikToker. I love following your TikToks, and you're a big part of the book talk community as well. What has that done for you? What have you found that you love about that aspect of marketing?
I mean, I love the fact, Catherine talked about it a little bit, but that connection with other people, that genuine human connection with other people, I didn't expect that. Like, I don't have the most followers on TikTok, but I do know every single one of the book talkers. They're like fantastic people. Like, I know so many of them. And I love the new books that I get to read, because I'm an avid reader. You can't tell. But I love reading books, and there are a lot of books out there that I wouldn't have read if it weren't for my new friends talking about it, and we cross promote each other, and that means that I get to read books, and I'm so cool with that.
There was a stretch where you wrote, was it like 200,000 words in like a month?
2 months.
2 months.
I'm not that impressive. 100,000
well, you are, but
100,000 in February and 100,000 in March this year.
What is the key to that? Is it just not turning off everything and just going? What did you find? When did you feel like you were in a groove?
It took me a couple of years. I started using Christine Yant's word tracker in 2002. And just started like looking at my habits. I didn't change any of them. I just looked at them and then was like, okay, so now I can make one change and see how that goes. And 2023, I did do about 100,000 more words than I did the year before. And I was like, okay, so that's working. This year, the thing that I've changed is writing every day. Even if I only write one sentence, writing something every day. I have not yet missed a day this year. And I'm really close to breaking 500,000 for the year.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. It's just about building up the habits and looking at what you do and how to bend in them, instead of like, you can't just straight up cold turkey start a new habit. That's not how it works. So you have to
ease into it.
Yeah. You have to find a way to help yourself into it.
Yeah, I mean, with all that has been going on lately with NaNoWriMo and everything else, you know, the one thing that we were contending about when we were talking about it on Friday was the idea that the idea is a good one. It started with a really good idea, which is to get people in the habit of writing, right, and to get them going, you know, but it's tough to maintain that with daily life and everything else going on, and then you get into other things, and then you get stuck in places, then you get into research, and you go into research.
I've learned that I like don't write in the summer. I don't know why. I just don't write in the summer ever.
How do you balance all that though? I mean, because you do a lot of stuff. You know, you're doing a lot of reading and proofreading, and you know, you have to turn on your editor brain for that a lot. So how do you balance that? What is the key to that?
First thing I do every morning is the thing I want to do most. I write. And then usually, like, if I'm not having a really good writing day, it's really easy to pivot to something else. And if I'm having a really good writing day, we are riding that horse to the Derby. Like, we're going, it's gone. If we're having a good writing day, that's where I'm at that whole day. And I also set the rule for myself that on weekends, I can't work. I can only write, because writing is fun. And I love writing. So writing just on weekends, just writing, nothing extra.
So it is a key of picking out the right time of day that works for you, right? And then just sticking to that every single day.
Yeah.
You do on weekends, 7 days a week, you're writing?
Yeah. Every day. I haven't missed a single day this year.
It's amazing. God,
I don't have to write on the weekends, though. I do try to give myself time off. But
and that's important too, right? To give yourself some grace and some space.
Yeah. I have a disability, a chronic illness that can knock me on my butt for a week. And there are weeks on my little spreadsheets that are very colorful and beautiful. I make spreadsheets. I love them. There are weeks where all the numbers are yellow because I've got one sentence down, 48 words, 17 words. And I'm like, you know what? It counts.
Yeah.
Still haven't missed a day. That's something to say.
And did you have COVID this year? Was it?
I
this
did.
Year?
I caught COVID right after Jordan Con. I caught the new strain that is everybody just picked up at Dragon Con.
Yeah.
But I caught that one first. And with my POTS, it was a really bad combination. I had straight up COVID for almost a month, and then I continued to have a fever of over 100 degrees for another 6 weeks. So that was fun.
Yeah. But you still wrote, and that's pretty impressive.
I still wrote. It's all yellow for like 2 months straight, but I wrote.
Were some of those in kind of a weird haze? Did you look at some of those words and go, you know what, maybe they're not?
I was working on some short stories because I didn't want any pressure on anything. And going back and reading those short stories, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, this is a weird concept. Gonna need a lot of edits there.
Yeah, that's a great thing, right? Words could be edited, so
yeah, you can't fix something that doesn't exist. That's actually one of the ways that I finish projects too. Nobody ever sees my first draft.
Yeah,
everybody thinks I have really clean first drafts. That's because you see the second draft. I never share my first drafts because I give myself the permission to write badly. And just suck at it and just get to the point and get through the story and figure out what I'm trying to say in the book and then go back and rewrite it and have that really clean draft. There's a YouTube video, I think it's by Jake something, called Finished Not Perfect. It's the first thing that shows up. It's 3 minutes long. It's about like drawing art, but we are still artists. And so when I watched that movie, little video, it changed the way that I look at writing so that I can do bad, so that because I can't fix something that I don't do.
Yeah.
And I can't learn to write books if I never write a book. Let it be a bad book, just write the book.
It's the old Michael Jordan adage, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right.
And you don't write 100% of the books you outlined for 7 years.
Yeah.
No experience there. I don't know what.
So some other person. That's some other person that we're talking about. Somebody we know, but maybe. So what is your aim when you're writing? Are you aiming at a certain book you want to finish, or are you letting the creative process just sweep you away, and then whatever that is, then you're going to fit it into a schedule? How do you approach that aspect of it?
I have deadlines, lots of deadlines. I recently signed a contract that I'm going to have deadlines for a very long time for.
Nice.
Um,
Congratulations.
and I'll tell you more about it later. It's a secret. Not really that much of a secret. I told everybody. But with the deadline, I set myself a goal for the day. It's usually write a chapter. And in my first drafts, my chapters are maybe 2,500 words.
Mhm.
And I set myself enough space so that some chapters can take more than one day. I do a chapter a day on the rewrites because rewriting is where I can actually do things. I'm so much better at that. And then I can finish a book in 2.5 months. I guess, I don't know. I don't know. I sit down and I laser focus on that. And then if there's time in the afternoon, I'll work on other stuff. This month so far, I've only been working on a bunch of presentations. I'm actually going to be at the Colorado Gold Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Conference. I almost said contest. No, I'm not going to. Conference. Where I am teaching several panels and I am mentoring, and I'm a special guest at a dinner. Like I have a table of people who want to sit with me. I'm like, that's so cool. Can we wear pink? But yeah, no, like just sitting down and getting the one thing done and then moving on to the other stuff. This month, I've just been working on updating all my presentations that I haven't seen in a few years.
For people who don't know, that was where I got my start. The Colorado Gold Conference. That was the first thing that I ever attended as an author or wanted to be author. And Alice Sebold was the guest of honor at that one. So for people who don't know Alice Sebold, she wrote The Lovely Bones. So that was kind of a weird indoctrination and interesting, as a young writer, So Colorado Gold Conference has been around quite a bit because I'm much, much older than most people. So, but it's a great conference. If you're in the Denver area, I highly recommend it. I think it's where I got my first agent and everything. So, it's a good conference. So, is it still in Lakewood?
I think so. No, it's down in the DTC. It's still in the Denver area. It hasn't moved from that, but it's actually my first year going, so I'm excited. Really excited. I love writing conferences, and I've missed teaching at them.
That's awesome. I love that. You would be an excellent teacher too, so I was looking forward to seeing you do stuff like that, maybe at Multiverse at some point. Have you ever thought about the Learn track at Multiverse? Is that something that you
Yeah, but they say that you have to submit a paper, and I'm like, I don't have papers. I just have very long PowerPoint presentations.
Well, I'm sure that would work fine for them.
Jesse,
so
would that work fine?
Yeah, I think you'd be okay. I think the dissertations and the presentation aspect of it does throw people off, but I think they're pretty lenient in that aspect. I think what they're really looking for is somebody just to teach something, right? So
I would love to bring my neurodivergency and the creative process to that show, because that would be so good.
I think that would be one of the more well-attended panels of the Multiverse weekend, I'm sure. So
I can now call myself even more of an expert on
there you go.
On neurodivergency, because I actually am teaching government agencies in Colorado about neurodivergence and how to work with people who have ADHD. And I'm like, this is so cool. I don't know how this happened.
Because you're awesome. That's why it happened. And you're very good at it. So, all right. So I have one question for you. I've been dying to ask you for the last 25 minutes. And I'm curious, what do you find is the key to style? Because you're so stylish. You come out in colorful outfits, and is it just loving what you wear? What do you find is the key to your personal style?
I mean, honestly, it's the fact that I like pastels. They are all in the same hue family. So my entire wardrobe is what is called a capsule wardrobe. Everything in it I can mix and match. So I only need a handful of shirts, and I only need a handful of sweaters, and I only need a handful of hair bows, although I regret that decision and will get more if given half a chance. So, but the fact that I've got a couple of everything and they all match each other makes it really easy to throw together an outfit at like the last minute. I literally just went down and was like, oh, I shouldn't wear my pajama sweater. I'll just throw on this purple sweater instead. Done.
Are you looking for specific things when you go shopping, or is it just stuff that catches your eye and you go, oh, that would be good in my wardrobe?
A lot of the ooh, that would be good. I'm really good at talking myself out of buying things that I don't need. Because again, the capsule wardrobe is meant to be kind of compact. I have way more sweaters than I need. Sweaters are my thing. I'm a weak person for a good sweater. But again, it's the pastel thing is really helpful to me because it limits what I can buy. I can't just buy every shirt I see at the shop, no matter how cool it is. I have to find the one in pink. Does it come in pink? No, you can't have it. So that helps a lot too, is looking specifically for the color palette that I love. And I really, really love pastels. You guys cannot see it, but this entire, I'm in my library right now. The whole thing is in pastels. And then my bedroom and my office downstairs are all in pastels. My dog's collar, it's pastel.
I mean, I'm a sucker for like sky blue. I love that. That's a really nice pastel, but obviously because this is a lot lighter than it is showing on camera. But yeah, I love that idea. It's so colorfulness is the key then.
Yeah, for me it's colorful. The more colorful, the better. I want to look like Easter threw up at all times.
All right, so Toby, for people who live under a rock and don't know you, tell everybody where they can come and get these wonderful books of yours and take a look and be a part of your universe and get on your newsletter, please.
Yes, sign up for my newsletter and find my books at octoberksanterelli.com. It's just like my name is spelled, no periods in it, just octoberksanterelli.com. And you guys can get signed copies of my books directly from my shop. Right now, City of Day is down, but I still have copies, so you can get copies of City of Day through me on my site. You can buy the Book of the Witch's Son both on Amazon and on my site if you want signed copies, my website. And I have to share this. This is big news. You guys are going to be the first ones to hear it. The Book of the Witch's Son is going to have an audiobook. I have signed a contract with an audiobook narrator, and it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Coming soon, like next year.
Hopefully City of Day will follow suit then.
I'm hoping so, but I have to get that one posted first before I can start looking for people to read it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, go check those out. Toby, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Coming on here and talking with me. It's always a pleasure, my friend, and we'll definitely sit down and we'll get together in October and have a nice chat. So,
I mean, it's the best month. So.
It is. It definitely is. All right, everybody. So if you're feeling giving, we've got some great opportunities for you with the Multiverse charity. So we'll take a look at that, and then I'll be back to close out the show. One of the intricate ways in which Multiverse is such a great con is its charity work. And Multiverse is thrilled to announce that the Lost-N-Found Youth has been selected as the recipient of our charity fundraising proceeds for 2024. Lost-N-Found Youth is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting LGBTQ+ youth experiencing homelessness with a mission to equip them with the skills and resources necessary for independent living. For more details about Lost-N-Found Youth, you can find the link in our description below. Multiverse is utilizing the 32 auctions once again for its charity auction. featuring a variety of items available for bidding, both at the convention and online. Additional items, including those from our charity Art Jam, will be continually added to the site, providing bidders with the opportunity to review and place bids remotely. You can visit the auction page at the link in the description below. To donate an item, you can click on the donate button and form. Again, the link will be in the description below. Additionally, Multiverse is conducting a food drive to benefit last year's charity beneficiary, Backpack Buddies of Metro Atlanta. Backpack Buddies is a committed program to providing weekend meals to approximately 2,500 children who rely on their schools for their weekday meals. For more information about Backpack Buddies, the link is in the description below. There will be more details released about the food drive as they develop, so stay tuned to all of that. MultiverseCon.org site, and join us this October for Multiverse. I mean, that ad said it all. Join us this October. We're getting very, very close. It is days now, people. I mean, it's a little bit over a month, but still, it's just about a month away, and we're real excited about that. I'm real excited to hopefully see you all there. We'll be live for This Week in Indies. So if you're not going to be there, you'll get a nice little experience. You'll get to see Studio 42 and all its wonder. What we were talking about earlier, because we'll be broadcasting from there, and I'm looking forward to that. I might go live every once in a while too, just jump on there and say hello to everybody in the virtual land, because virtual, as we've talked about all in this episode, virtual reality is the reality, and we're all living in a digital age where it's at the tips of our fingers, and it's wonderful to have. It's an opportunity for Multiverse to get out there even further and to spread the word about this wonderful, wonderful event. And I hope that you consider the opportunity to come and join us, if not this year, next year, and the years to come, because it's going to be amazing. And we look forward to that as we do. We will be back here on Friday with another couple guests to talk more about the multiverse and look at it from a different perspective and a different angle as we do. And we've got shows going all through September that culminate. I want to mention here, and I will mention this at the end of every episode, so you'll get tired of hearing me say this, but it will all culminate at the end. Our season finale will feature the one and only Vanessa Junta, the head of programming at Multiverse. She will sit down with me for the entire hour, and we will field all of your questions about it. So if you ever wonder, if you're thinking about something you wonder about at Multiverse, you have a question about it, you have a question about programming, you have a question about anything revolving around Multiverse, she will be there to take those questions for you. That is going to be on, let me give you the date. I'll even give you the date right now because I know it. It'll be Friday, October 4th. At 9:30 p.m. Eastern. We will be doing that show 2 weeks before Multiverse happens. And so you'll want to join us for that. But you want to join us each Monday night here at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then every Friday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. We changed the time a little bit to make it a little bit easier for people on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast, so it doesn't really bother me all that much. But it does get a little late for people on the East Coast. So I moved it back just a little bit so that with the, I do have a job, so I have to get here, but otherwise I would have moved it back even further. But 9:30 Eastern time on Friday, so it's 6 p.m. Eastern on Mondays, 9:30 on Friday, all the way till the end of September. We will have 2 guests and more stuff about the multiverse and the sponsors that are involved in what they're doing as well. So look forward to that. And remember, that's always time to go indie now. And we'll see you again on Friday, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.